9-3 Agnes. And currently we have no updates from our current proposal that we put forth in the open hearing, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that come forward. From the initial council meeting, we made an effort to discuss with some of the local neighbors as best we could and had some very good candid discussions about changes, and we felt that through those discussions that we were best fit keeping the application as put forward first. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions from neighbors or council.
Any questions from council for Mr. Ramsey? Seeing none? Yeah, I'll ask you to sit back down. And at this time, I'd like to open it up to public input and ask that members of the public that wish to speak for or against this application come forward. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a second time, are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a third time, are there any members of the public that wish to speak to 593 Agnes Street?
Hello, Mayor, Council, Michelle Williams from 554 Agnes, resident in the area for more than 11 years, and I'd like to just, I'm opposed to this for two reasons. I think the neighborhood in the Glanford area should remain as it was originally planned. The way that everybody has, you know, almost equal-sized lots, and everybody's working, I think, quite hard to keep up their properties and the value of the area. And my second reason is because we already have a very large amount of traffic congestion going up and down Agnes. This morning, commercial vehicles at 7 in the morning racing up and down on their way to Interurban Road, and also from the school we have a lot of families traveling back and forth using Agnes Street, and I think that adding more traffic at that corner of Agnes and Glanford would just cause more accidents. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward. All right, I'll close the public input period, and I'll now turn this over to council for a decision. Councilors? Councilor Bryce?
I'll move the rezoning for 593 Agnes Street.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Discussion? Councilor Bryce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this, when it came forward before, had sufficient support that we realized that efforts had been made to address some of the concerns raised by the design panel. The issues raised by the neighbor about the speeding traffic and such is certainly sympathetic, but I think that is sort of regardless of what's happening on this particular piece of property, and I can't see that this application, if approved, is going to be negative to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Councilor. Any more discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion to rezone from RS6 to RD1. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Can I have a motion for a second reading of bylaw number 9359?
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. And for a third reading of bylaw 9359.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. And finally, a recommendation to approve development permit DPR 00600.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And that will also come for final reading at a later date. Madam Clerk, would you please introduce the next item for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is for 1765 Mortimer Street. It's zoning bylaw 2003, amendment bylaw 2015, number 9360, to rezone a portion of Lot 2 of Plan 42392, being 1765 Mortimer Street, from RS6 to RS4 for a proposed two-lot residential subdivision. Covenant will also be considered. Council is in receipt of a report from the Director of Planning of September 25th, 2015, recommending approval of the rezoning, and that final reading of the zoning amendment be withheld pending registration of the covenant to secure the design of the dwelling for proposed lot 1 to conform to the energy efficiency standard, and that any new dwelling on proposed lot 1 include the installation of heat pumps and necessary conduits for solar ready, and that the new dwelling further on proposed lot 1 also be constructed substantially in compliance with the plans prepared by Colwood Design Lawn, date stamp received June 23rd, 2015. Letters from the Mount Ptolemy Community Association, December 8th and October 19th and February 17th, all of 2015, have been circulated. One additional letter from resident has been circulated this evening. That is the extent, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does council have any questions for staff before I invite the applicant forward? Seeing none, I'd like to invite the applicant for 1765 Mortimer to the microphone.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Norm Weems. My wife and I live at 1488 Kaiway Road in Comox. I'm the son-in-law of the owner of the property, Joan Bondison. Joan and Walter Bondison bought this property in 1950. It was originally a 1-acre property, and they purchased it on the DBA program. They lived in the house on the property for 65 years until last summer when Joan moved to nearby Berwick House. In the 65 years that they owned the property, they raised 3 kids, get pretty old now, and slowly subdivided the property as the city came around them into city-sized lots, leaving one remaining double-wide property. Now that Joan's moved away from the house and into Berwick House, she would like to subdivide the last double-wide property and sell both pieces. Because we live up island, her surviving children live up island, we've asked Denise Coors to shepherd us through the process of getting the property rezoned and subdivided.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Denise Coors of Coors Development Services, and I am the applicant on this rezoning application. I've prepared a short presentation outlining the features of this application, including the new house designs and a summary of the neighborhood consultation that's taken place over the last year. So the first drawings here show the existing house and garage on the upper photo, and the one below it sort of shows the empty space in the double-wide lot. So this is a site plan. The infill that we're proposing here is consistent with the official community plan and the local area plan. It's well within the urban containment boundary. Subdivision that's being proposed in association with this rezoning is to create one additional lot. We're proposing to leave the existing house and garage on an RS6 lot and to rezone the other side of the lot to RS4 to permit a second lot to be done in the subdivision. So the new house design that we provided with the application I will show you some photos of that, and as well we've confirmed that design with a covenant, or a proposal that would be a covenant. And we're not proposing any variances. So the parcel characteristics for lot 1, which is the RS4 lot, which would be the RS4 lot, is 482 square meter lot, and the lot width is 16 meters, and the lot depth in both of them is just over 30 meters. Lot 2 has 572 square meters, and its width is 18.31. One of the things that I like about the width of the lots is that they, even though they're an RS4 and 6, they meet the RS6 and RS8 lot widths. So a little bit about the neighborhood context and sustainability. This infill is within the urban containment boundary, and it's close to transit, schools, parks, shopping, and recreation. We are proposing to retain the existing house and the separate garage on one of the lots. We're proposing Energuide 82 and also a heat pump, and that it be designed, the new house be designed to be solar ready. There are limited stormwater impacts because we're proposing that permeable pavers be provided and also in-ground detention tanks to meet the standards for sanitation. And finally, sidewalk construction is proposed for the frontage, and in addition, the owner has agreed to extend that to Ansell, one more property over. So this is the site plan that's proposed. We are giving a largest setback on the side with the existing house. In this case, it's to the west, and that house is, that existing residence has no windows on that side of the house. This is a streetscape that shows the existing residence and garage on the left-hand side, and the house that's next door on the right-hand side, and this house that's being proposed here from the frontage of Mortimer. We had a comment from the neighbor across the street who requested more privacy from the windows at the front of the house, or the one window that's at the front of the house, and that's been done through making the windows smaller and also by adding the street tree in front of it. So the new house design is shown here. The elevation that's on the right-hand side shows that we have very few windows that face the existing house next door. The windows that are in the upper story in the bedroom up there are all piano windows. They're very high up. And we also have these two elevations showing the rear of the property and also the other elevation adjacent to the existing house on the lot. So a little bit about the neighborhood consultation. We initially contacted, or I initially contacted the 8 surrounding property owners. As the owners have indicated, the owner, including Joan, some of the owners had mentioned to me that they had already been approached over a long period of time in backyard chats and were aware that this subdivision was likely going to be coming. I sent an information package with all the site plans and house designs to the immediately impacted neighbors. And I reviewed issues that were brought forward by one of the neighbors, in particular what I mentioned earlier about the window at the front, and also the street tree location. So the Mount Tommy Community Association, we had an initial review with them by phone and submission of the drawings, and then we also attended one of their meetings. A neighborhood open house was then held on February 11th, and we had 2 people attend the open house. And finally, the Community Association has provided a letter of support back in February, and that was backed up with another one that was received today. So I now invite you to let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions from council for the applicant? Seeing none, I'll ask you to return to your seat, and thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to public input and invite members of the public to speak for or against this application. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a second time, are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a third time, are there any members of the public that wish to speak to 1765 Mortimer Street? Seeing none, I'll call the end to public input and look to council for a motion. Councilor Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move the rezoning. The seconder, I'll speak to it. Thank you. This is a well-thought-out proposal with a good public consultation process, has support of the community, of the neighborhood association, is in an area that is appropriate for limited infill. It's quite close to services, transportation routes, is consistent with what has happened in the neighborhood in the past. Has laudable energy, will meet laudable energy efficiency standards, and provides us with some additional sidewalk amenity. So considering all those things, I'm more than pleased to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion on this motion to rezone? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Will someone put forward a second?
Move second reading.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And a third reading, please.
Move third reading. Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And we're done with item C. And the final reading will come back at a later date as well, any registration of the covenant. Madam Clerk, could you please introduce the next item for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is the Saanich Municipal Hall Heritage Designation Bylaw 2015, number 9361. This bylaw is to retain the previous heritage designation of the exterior of the Saanich Municipal Hall building and to add the character-defining interior features of the public areas and the built landscape features surrounding the Municipal Hall of this property of Lot A of Plan 14934, except those plan parts that are in right-of-way and excluding Plan 33545. Council is in receipt of a report of the Director of Planning dated October 13th, recommending that Council repeal the Heritage Designation Bylaw 6887 and the Council adopt a new Heritage Designation Bylaw to protect the building, the land of the Saanich Municipal Hall as outlined in the proposed schedule and bylaw. Memos of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee to April 7th and December 8th of 2014 are submitted to Council. That are an excerpt of minutes of the Saanich Heritage Foundation, December 15th and 2014 and November 26th of 2014. Letter from the Hallmark Heritage Society and one letter from a resident are circulated this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does Council have any questions for staff on this item? Councillor Haynes? That's okay, microphone. I was going to remind you.
The process.
Your microphone, please.
Could you just clarify the process? The item 1, we have to repeal the designation and then adopt the new heritage. So it's a two-step process.
Actually, the process is wrapped in the new proposed bylaw that will actually see the repeal of that.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I don't believe we have a presentation from anybody. This is we're the applicant in this case, the district. So with that, I'd like to invite members of the public up to speak for or against the changes to this bylaw. If you please give your name and address for the record, it would be appreciated.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bradley Shuya, 762 Ralph Street. I'm also president of the Saanich Heritage Foundation. And tonight I'm also wearing my architect's hat. I'll explain that a little bit further. Something up for you. So, of course, on behalf of the Saanich Heritage Foundation, I'm pleased to support this bylaw for interior heritage designation and the exterior landscape designation. And, you know, it's interesting, there's only one other building in Saanich currently that has designation for both the interior and the exterior. And that building has many former names, the Royal Oak Inn, Maltwood Residence, the Thatch, Chanticleer Restaurant, and now, of course, Fireside Grill. It's located at 4509 West Saanich Road. So I think it'd be very appropriate that we can add a second building, which is, I think, far more superior in its design to that category of interior and exterior designation, such as Saanich Municipal Hall. So at the last committee of the whole last month, there was a few concerns raised, specifically about the council chamber. And some of the concerns raised were, how would we deal with potential renovations of the chamber? Here, let's say seismic upgrades, and even additions to the exterior of the building, to the municipal hall. So I wanted to just show you an example of a project that I was involved in, my firm, and we did all those things to a heritage school located in Victoria. And of course, it's Quadra Elementary School. We had a little building addition to the original structure, which was built in 1914, which you see in the center of this slide. That building, unfortunately, was not stable, so we had to knock it down. So as you know, seismic upgrades can be pretty invasive. So here's an example We had an addition to the original heritage building, had to be knocked down because it frankly was too expensive to rebuild. So the solution was a new building addition to replace that former product that was now built in 2015. We also had some heritage elements, seismic elements on the exterior of the 1960s block, which you see in the slide, which has all the scaffolding around it. So these are new concrete shear walls that had to be added to the building. But more importantly, and that's a final shot of how the building looks today, but more importantly, the interior of the school, which was a 1914 building. And as you can see, yes, seismic upgrades are pretty invasive. We basically had to gut the interior, in this case, rebuild it from the inside out, took the whole corridor system out of the building. Yeah, it was incredible. So you can imagine, thank God this was an unoccupied school, because of course it couldn't survive this type of invasive approach. The children were moved to Richmond Elementary, so it gave us a year to complete this project. But very invasive work that finally ended up in a product that looked non-invasive. So we were able to mesh the heritage fabric of the original school with the new structure. And you couldn't tell the difference today if you walked through the building. So classrooms, the same thing. Basically gutted, including the original slate blackboards, which were behind the green boards, which were behind the white boards. So then new steel beams and support columns throughout the interior of all the classrooms. And then when you look at the school now, of course nobody sees all that because it's masked by all the, I won't call it architecture, but the new fabric of the building. So just an example that heritage buildings can survive changes over time, including seismic upgrades, renovations, and additions. So I think in Saanich we've got a great opportunity here to designate the interior of this building. And frankly, I don't see any negative aspects to it. We did have a director of engineering present to the Heritage Foundation this evening some of the council chamber plans, so we're happy to continue conversations in the future about that proposal. But honestly, we really are enthused to see this designation come before council. And I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's, I think it's more public input time than we'll take speaker after speaker.
Absolutely.
But definitely do have some questions. Thank you, Mr. Shearer. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Ken Johnson. I reside at 3904 Landis Place. I am the president of the Hallmark Heritage Society. I sit on the Saanich Heritage Foundation. I sit on the Saanich Arts, Cultural, and Heritage Committee. When we speak of designating the elements in this building, in this chamber, in the landscaping, we are talking about the various elements that add to the character of the building that have values to the building. And certainly they have been identified in the designation proposal. As regards changes, no matter what is designated, council always controls changes to the building, designated or not. That is entirely within your power. You made the bylaw. And if in your wisdom you decide to make changes to the building subsequently, that is also entirely within your power. In other places, interiors have been designated, many, many of them, including landscapes. Within this municipality, the lands in front of the Wilkinson Road Jail are designated properties. When you drive by, that is designated. There's a great wedge there, a property that is a designated landscape. And I assure you, if the provincial government can get along with it, I'm sure we could manage. Also, Camosun College, in front of the Young Building. That property there is designated as well. The building is, and the property. Camosun College wanted to make some changes to the property this past year. and has come before our various committees, and we've discussed the changes and made recommendations, and we've worked out a solution that meets the requirements of all people involved in it. In terms of interiors, one of the most noted interiors in the city that has been designated historically and restored is portions of St. Anne's Academy. And that building underwent a great rehabilitation, turned into government offices, but within that complex, there's a historic classroom, entranceways, offices, the chapel. All of those portions of the interior have been designated. And if someone wanted to make changes to them, they probably could again, but it would have to be looked at. As one who deals as a volunteer now, but formerly as a professional, with changes to heritage buildings, we normally ask that it be sympathetic, that it reflect the values that we developed, and reflects what we feel is important in that building. So that if the changes are sympathetic, normally we would approve them. Now, there may be some discussion back and forth, but then there always is, as you can understand in this chamber, you deal with the same issues at all times. So I hope this evening that you will come to approve the motion, and if you have any questions, please be free to call upon us at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Mayor and Council, my name is Sheila Colwell. I live at 1911 Woodley Road. I just wanted to say that I applaud and support Council's intention to designate the unique interior features of this building for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Terence Williams. I live at 1130 Oliver Street in Victoria. I am an architect. I am a past president of the Architectural Institute of British Columbia, a former president of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. So I think I can speak on behalf of all Canadian architects and say congratulations to all, past and present, residents of Saanich for foresight, courage, and their convictions in commissioning and constructing and maintaining this building so well for 50 years. My connection to this rezoning is also very personal. I'm the last surviving partner of the original architectural firm Wade Stockton Armour, and at a later date Peter Blewett became a partner as well. Peter Blewett was the architect for this building, for this complex. Peter Blewett, Wade, John Wade, Dexter Stockdill, John Armour, Peter Blewett have all died. But Peter Blewett, being somewhat unconventional, had a living wake, and he invited all of his partners and all of his former staff to attend his living wake. As part of that party, if you will, that celebration, a group of us took along a large poster of this building, and we called it Peter Blewett's contribution to Canadian Corps. Canadian Corps in that instance was a reference to the French architect Le Corbusier. And certainly, I think if you have an interest in architecture and fine art, you can look at this building and see the influences of Le Corbusier. But Peter Blewett, during that party, tore my ear off because he told me that Le Corbusier was not an influence on him and the design of this building, but it was a man called Kenzo Tange, who was a Japanese architect. Kenzo Tange, in his conceptual writings, refers to Le Corbusier, but admits that he is more influenced by Dutch structuralism, a movement in the architecture and planning that evolved between the 50s and the 60s in Europe. Kenzo Tange developed that thinking and developed a more universal architectural language, and he called it structuralism. So I'd like to be a little bit academic and classify this building as a fine example of Canadian structuralism, a building of international stature, influenced by European and Asian aesthetics and philosophies. The exterior and the interior was, in my mind, a progressive and courageous design ahead of its time in so many ways, including our current thinking about social, economic and environmental sustainability. The design of Saanich Municipal Hall embraced the principles of structuralism wholeheartedly and with vision, finesse and verve. Yes, I'm biased in my outlook after talking to Peter Blewett, but I reiterate this is an example, a very fine example of Canadian structuralism. The building is a result of people who are investigating, researching and implementing progressive global thinking and then acting locally. This is, in my opinion, architecture as a fine art and should be celebrated and recognized as such. I mentioned, I think previously, that 2,000 years ago, Vitruvius, a Roman architect, defined architecture as that which possessed the qualities of commodity, firmness and delight. His words, as I said previously, describe this building. Heritage designation of the building's interior and the exterior will be a consistent and constant reminder of those qualities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Please come forward. Calling for a second time, any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a third time? All right, I'll call this the end of public input. I'll thank the speakers, and I'll hand this over to council for a decision. I see Councillor Sanders up. Hand up. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You wouldn't consider me eager, were you? I must say I'm pleased to